So today my first English interview for Rugby Daily with Curtis Bradford, the coach of the German's women's national team. Curtis, nice to have you.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Curtis, let's start like this. What do we need to know about Curtis Bradford? About your life, about your work, everything.
um, yeah, I'll try and keep it pretty short. But I'm from Wales originally, so I grew up in Wales, and you have to play rugby there. So it's not really a choice when you're growing up. So rugby was always like a big part of my upbringing, and I kind of through injuries kind of always had an interest in coaching even when I was in school. So when I was 18, I'd already started coaching my younger brother's team, and so coaching was always a interesting thing for me. And yeah, from there I just kind of used rugby as a way to travel quite a lot. So I had a lot of sort of adventures playing, and sort of coaching was always coupled with playing. And yeah, so I was really lucky. I got to go to Scandinavia, got to spend a season in Malaysia, spent time in Australia. And then when I was in Australia, I had to stop playing because of too many concussions. So then I just fully focused on coaching, and from there, obviously coaching in Australia then, and I went to Austria, which is a funny story in itself, and that was a really cool adventure. Met my now girlfriend in Austria, and yeah, we've been together since then. So since there we've I did a season in Italy as well, and then came to Germany I think in 2022 to coach SCN, and then through that got involved with the union, and the last let's say 2 seasons with the union I've been skills coach, which basically meant I was working across lots of different teams. So I was involved with men's 15s, men's 7s, the age grade teams, the women as well as doing the coach education. But since January, fully with the women, which has been great to sort of focus more on one team, and really give the attention to that program that I feel it deserves. So yeah, a bit long winded, but yeah, that's probably my rugby life in a nutshell.
Yes, it's been an exciting journey, I guess. We need to talk about all that later. Um, we're having this interview right now. It's 10 o'clock in the morning because you're having a German lesson in like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Give us a short example of your German. How good is it so far?
Ja, well, mein Deutsch ist nicht sehr gut, aber ich habe gesagt, meine Freundin kommt aus Österreich, aber der Deutsch in Österreich ist ein bisschen komisch, so sie ist nicht eine perfekte Lernerin für mich, aber ich kann verstehen 90% Deutsch, aber wenn du machst eine Frage für mich, ich bin so langsam, so habe eine gute Sprache. So, ähm, ja, aber für mich ist es ganz wichtig wann du bist ein National Trainer für Deutschland, du musst nicht perfekt sprechen Deutsch, aber mache Effort. So, ja.
Yeah, great, great. I like that attitude very, very much. So I don't really know where to start this interview. Let's maybe start like this. What do you like or maybe love about coaching?
That's a good question. I think that's probably evolved quite a lot over the time I coached. I think when I started, I would have loved winning, and and it was just an extension of competing as a player, and it was the next best thing. I think over time though, what I really enjoy is the sort of the mentoring aspect of being a coach and helping people improve, whether that's technically, tactically, but sometimes it's also about their mentality and how they approach a problem. And I feel like I kind of worked out in the last, I would say even recently, 6 months or so, that that's actually the bit I really love, and rugby's kind of as much as I love rugby, rugby's kind of the vehicle to allow me to do that. I think for me, if it wasn't rugby, it would be something else, because I think that's the bit that I'm really passionate about. And it's quite a new realization, because like I said, I've been so driven by chasing results or trying to get to the next level as a coach. But I think in the last 6 months, it's really sort of been clear to me it's actually about just helping people improve and trying to improve yourself as a coach as well, because we don't know everything. And it's an exciting way to look at it, because you never finish that race. You're always trying to go further and develop more. So I suppose that's what I love about it. It's an unattainable goal.
It's all part of kind of a philosophy of coaching. How would you describe, maybe even more in detail, your philosophy? When I was talking to Mareike Bier, she told me that you're very strong in empowering people. That's also a big part, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the big thing is, we, as coaches, and again, it's probably a development over the time I've been coaching, but I think in the beginning I would have been a bit of a control freak and almost wanted to play the game almost like I was playing a video game, So we're going to do this here, and I want you to do this here. Whereas actually, I think you can have short-term success like that, but for something to be sustainable and for something to be successful over the long term, the main stakeholders are the players. So the players need, in my opinion anyway, the players need to have autonomy, the players need to have responsibility, and the way they're going to feel empowered is actually giving them the opportunity. So I think it is a really big part of how I coach. I do think it's also dependent on the group. Sometimes a group needs you to be a bit more directive, and you, as a coach, you have to adapt to that, because it's about what the players need. But I think in the case with the women's national team, I think that collaborative approach is how I most like to coach, but it's also what I think the girls respond well to. So I feel like that's I listened to that interview, and it was nice of her to say, because that is I suppose that is what I'm striving for with that group.
Has there been like one coach, or maybe even more than one, in your career that kind of inspired you, or who was a mentor for you?
I've been really lucky. I've had quite a few. There's sort of a lot of let's say bigger names who have been successful. I think Andy Friend, who was Australia's sevens, he was with Connacht, and I spent a bit of time with Connacht, and he was great with me and very open. And there's loads, to be honest. I could name a few, but the one that probably sticks out most of all to me was probably my PE teacher in school. So he was quite I would say a stereotypical Welshman, and I think he retired from teaching so he could work on the farm, and just a real pillar of the community. Everyone in the town I grew up knows him, respects him, and just I think and this is probably what impacted what I just said about my philosophy is I don't think he was brilliant at teaching me the fundamentals of the game when I was maybe 10 years old, 11 years old, whatever I was. But I think when we got to like 18 years old, I think I probably coached the team actually at that point, like technically, because I was playing fly half, and I remember there were sessions where he would tell me to take over the session, So whilst he was a good technical coach, I think his real power was actually the mentality he installed in the team. And I think everyone you speak to has positive things to say about him. We still keep in touch now. I still ask his opinion on things. He's now a local politician in the area I grew up, so he bumps into my family members quite a lot when he's out campaigning, and he's always got a good positive word to say. So he's just a very inspirational person in my heart, and I think the rugby aspect of that is kind of secondary, and in terms of why that's important as a mentor, I think that's because actually people remember how they feel about the environment, and not necessarily you as the coach, but how they feel when they're in that team. And yeah, I think that's a really powerful learning that I was very lucky to have from a really young age.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask him, would you say you learned to be a coach as a young man already?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, it probably developed a lot. Like I would have, I'm a fan of football, so I would have been really influenced by, Premier League football managers and who wins the trophy is the best coach. But actually, over time, I think you kind of realize it's not really coaching as such. There's obviously a lot of talent and hard work that goes into that, but creating that environment, for me, is the real key to long-term success. And I think I was very lucky because I was interested in it. I would have been for sure taking notes of how this teacher would have acted in a team talk, or how he delivered his message. Or we're in Lions season at the minute, but I don't know if you remember, but there used to be the DVD that came out at the end of the Lions tour with all the behind the scenes. Now this is really common, everyone does it, but back then it was, I used to every Christmas, that would be the first thing on my Christmas list, and I used to steal the team talks from that, just copy paste, and I would say them as a player in the team talk, and everyone would start laughing because they've also seen the DVD and they know where I stole it from. But I was always interested in how coaches or captains or leaders, how they got their messages across, how they communicated, and I would say I was definitely learning from a young age.
Yeah. So let's talk about your job with Rugby Deutschland right now. Earlier you said that you needed to learn that results aren't everything in rugby or in life. And I read an interview, I think on the Rugby Deutschland homepage, where you said it would be easy to say, yeah, the goals are qualifying for the Challenger Series and for the Olympic Games, but there are a lot of other goals, maybe smaller goals. Like, what does success mean to you? Like looking at your job with the girls' team or women's team right now?
I suppose it's a very multi-layered answer, but for me, short term is about improvement. So we came 8th last year, I believe. So if we came 7th, it's maybe not as inspiring as if we finished 4th, but it is improvement. It is going in the right direction, and I feel like the big thing for this this group, but also the program as a whole, including the under 18s and the relationships we build with the club. The catchphrase for me, I suppose, or the big points I'm trying to make is that it's process. We focus on our process, and our process leads to progress. And if we get progress, then a consequence of that is performance. And that's where the results are going to come. So in the short term, we're focusing a lot on our process. We hopeful that leads us to progress, whether that's one place higher or if we win the whole thing, it's all progress. But the thing is, if we were just focused on an outcome, and this is just my opinion, it doesn't make it right, but if we were just focused on an outcome, we might be successful one year, but then because we weren't paying enough attention to why we were successful the next year, we might drop off again. So having a really clear process for me is how we're going to get sustainable growth and sustainable results. And I think then it's also, there's something for players to buy into. There's something for our clubs to engage with. and then we can build clearer pathways from under 18s and from club rugby and from Landesverband into our national team programs. So I think in the short term, it's about the process. Of course, in the long term, I want to see German teams at Olympic Games, and I want to see German teams on World Series. Absolutely. So it's not. I'm not trying to hide from results because it's a results business. But I feel like in the short term, we have to set the foundations, and the foundations are that we need to be really clear on our process, and that's going to lead us to the goals that come down the road.
Talking about progress, it was a tough job for Rugby Deutschland, what I heard, just to create your job because they needed money from the DOSB and so on. But just the fact that your job is existing now is a big part of progress, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, I think so. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I'm the one doing the job, but I think it's a huge step in the right direction. Whoever was the head coach to have a full-time head coach who can I said it at the top of the interview, but give this program the attention it deserves. I think because these girls, I don't just say it because we're in an interview. I say it to them constantly, but they are rock stars. Like what they put in, what they put in for what they have historically gotten out of playing for Germany, and that's no one's fault. It's just circumstance. But their commitment to it is unbelievable, and the fact that now they have this resource, which happens to be me, but whoever it was, I think it's a huge step in the right direction. But you've got someone who can do extra skills with them, can support them with analysis, can obviously run the team trainings, but that was happening anyway. But I think it is a really good step in the right direction. Of course, there's no magic wand because the players are still working and studying alongside that. So there's more layers that need to come in the future. But I feel like as a starting point, it's a huge progress.
Yeah, that would have been my next question. The girls, I had some of them here on Rugby Daily, Mette, Johanna, Sophie, and all the others. They are so passionate about rugby, about what they're doing, right?
Yeah, they're incredible. Really, I think those girls you mentioned, so that they're all in the leadership group for the sevens program, and they're so. What's the right way to say it? Like, I really love the positive confrontation that they bring. Like, that sounds like a bit of a weird thing to say, but it would be really easy. And there's plenty of teams that I've been a part of as a player and a coach, but it would be really easy for me to have a conversation with you. You say yes, but really disagree, and then go away and say to someone else, Curtis is terrible, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But what they're really good at is that they point out problems, but they also come with solutions. They're very open-minded, and just the passion and the energy they have to get better themselves, but also to help the team. It's amazing. It's really positive to be around, and I think the knock-on effect is then the younger girls see that as their example, and then they start to model that behavior as well. So in terms of developing a culture, you have to have the right people sort of as your influencers in the culture, and the three you mentioned there, along with some others as well. They're fantastic to work with. Brilliant.
Yeah, you recently, like last weekend or before last weekend, you played the London City Sevens. The girls won it. They won every game. And afterwards, you had a camp together with the Czech national team, I guess in Heidelberg. How were those days for you? Were you happy with everything?
They were long. They were long. I think in hindsight, so the original plan was to do the Czech camp, and London came up pretty spontaneously. So I was a little concerned that we were traveling back. I think it was going to be Friday evening and going straight into a camp. And I think in hindsight that we maybe would plan it differently, because I think Saturday everyone, myself included, was pretty tired. But I still think the camp as a whole was positive. London was a really positive experience as well. But I feel like London was really good because we haven't played anyone. So we've been in this kind of honeymoon period since January where, there's a new coach and he says nice things in interviews and the players feel positive, but we don't know if what we're working on actually works, So to put it in a tournament where we can stress test it, I think was really good. Now, obviously, the outcomes were really positive, which in itself is positive. But realistically, the EM is a big step above that level. So what was great was to go into the Czech camp and discover problems. So there were a few things, even though all the games were very competitive. We won some, we lost some, but against a good Czech team, we were very competitive. But we were starting to realize, okay, well, our defense was really good in London. We were really happy with how we defended, but against Czech, we got caught out a few times with some issues that we didn't anticipate. So then that allows us, through spotting those problems, we can then start to solve those problems before the EM. So I think the whole week, as long as it was and as tired as everyone was, I do think there was a lot of positives to come out of it, and even the negatives were very very welcome, because then it gives us something where we can say, okay, well, we need to adjust that, we need to do that slightly differently, or when we play a team that has a defense like this or an attack like this, we need to adjust that. So I think it was a good learning for me, good learning for those leadership players, and our target, I suppose, is to try and translate that information and that experience to the rest of the group.
And what are the next steps now? You're playing in Hagenau in June, and then those two highlights, EM first in Croatia and then the home tournament in Hamburg. Will there be any camps before?
Yeah, so this weekend we're going to Bonn. We're having a sort of a mini rebirth of the Bonn Sevens. So it's going to be 4 teams. So it will be 2 German sides, and Belgium and Georgia, who are both going to be in the championship this season. So it's a good opportunity for us to play against other teams. And again, it's important because for me, like I touched on earlier, like I look at the progress part as short, medium, long term. In the medium term, short, medium term, we need to also have more players capable of playing international level in Germany. So the fact that we can take 2 teams, I think is brilliant. So we'll have a group where that's a group of girls that are probably preparing for the EM at this stage. Then there'll be a group where there will also be players in that group that are trying to get into that EM squad and have a good chance still. So it's not a final reflection on EM. But then there will be another group within that second team that they otherwise wouldn't get the opportunity. They've probably never played a sevens tournament for Germany before. So it's a really good opportunity to expose more players, and maybe we see someone who we think, wow, I had no idea they could perform at that level, or a young up and coming player who can potentially be a superstar in the next couple of seasons. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity for us, and at the same point we can develop a team for the next tournaments which you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be exciting, especially at the EM with a home tournament, which is a big advantage, I think. Do you have specific goals, like as well results for those EM tournaments?
Yeah, so the players came up with that. So that was the first thing we sort of did when I started in January. We had a meeting with the whole squad, and we spoke about my vision for the program over the next sort of 4 to 8 years, and then in terms of what we need to do along the way, so we're talking a lot about Brisbane in 2032, but that doesn't just happen. There's got to be a lot of stops along the way. So obviously performing at the EM is one of those. So in terms of for this year, the girls came up with performance goals, culture goals, development goals, and those performance goals, obviously, we speaking about progress, so it's about progressing. So, like I said, we came 8th last year, so finishing 7th or higher. I know internally there is a big desire from the girls to qualify for the Challenger Series, and I think that's great, and I'm completely supportive of that. But with the restructuring and how things change, a lot of things sort of become out of our control, So like 2 weeks ago, this was what we needed to do to qualify. Now this is what we need to do to qualify. We're still not completely sure what the process is, if we're completely honest, in terms of to get to Challenger Series. So we could waste a lot of energy worrying about that, where actually we just got to focus on ourselves, and we're focused on developing and performing. And yeah, if we finish higher than last year, that's already a good start. And if we finish several places higher, then obviously that's even better.
Yeah, this new World Series, it's tough for everyone, I guess. But the Germans men's team were successful. It was a great weekend with ups and downs in Los Angeles. I guess you also watched the games. How happy were you in the end when those guys bet Samoa?
Oh, delighted. Yeah, I think obviously I'd been involved with that program a little bit up until January. So knowing the coaching staff very well, knowing the players very well, yeah, I was just super proud of them, because it's not like a season journey. That's been a journey for a long time, and the monkey they've tried to get off their back, so to speak. So I was really, really proud of them, really delighted for them, and seeing all of them as they returned to the office last week. It was it was really nice. Lots of hugs, a few tears. It was really, really great to see.
Oh yeah, to be honest, I was crying because I
Mm.
was so happy for the boys. Let's now talk about your journey. I checked your LinkedIn profile,
Mm.
and if I'm right, your first station or the first country you went to after Wales was Malaysia. You worked for Leicester Tigers in Malaysia.
Yeah.
It sounds curious. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so they have a global partnership program. So they have, I think, clubs all over the world. On Kuala Lumpur Tigers was, I think, one of the first ones, maybe even the first one. So yeah, there's a big expat community in Malaysia, or in Kuala Lumpur. So yeah, the Tigers employed, I think there was 3 of us as development officers, and yeah, so a lot of that was, at that point I was still playing, so I was a player coach with the men's team, and then we would do like school visits, a lot of international schools, some local schools, and just try to grow rugby there. And there's a huge following actually for rugby in Malaysia, and it's yeah, it's very different. Like we would do men's trainings would be at like 10 o'clock in the evening because it's so hot and humid. So it was pretty different, and yeah, culturally just completely different to anything I'd seen before that. So it was, yeah, a really good experience, and the style of rugby suited me pretty well because the Malaysian guys are not too big. So I was actually a big ball carrier rather than a facilitator. So it was quite nice for me.
Yeah, what was so different in the culture?
Rugby wise or lifestyle wise?
Everything.
Yeah, I mean, lifestyle wise, it's just hustle and bustle. Like, so I'm from the countryside in Wales, so it's pretty it was pretty different to me. There's not many sheep running around Kuala Lumpur. But yeah, no, it's just all go all day. It's very, very loud, very busy city. Obviously we've got such a mix of sort of Western foods and expat culture, but also like there's a lot of like influences from across Asia, particularly food. Food's the obvious one, I suppose, but like you've got fantastic sort of mix of Chinese and Indian food and local Malay food, and yeah, it's just brilliant. Like I really enjoyed it there. Rugby wise, just everyone's a lot smaller. So even though there's a lot of like paid players or guys normally from the Pacific Isles, so a lot of Fijians and Samoans, but outside of them, it's quite small guys or expat guys that are working and have a job while they're there, and it's a very very fast game. Like it felt really. Tigers maybe not so. They try to hold on to that like Leicester foundations. So there was a lot of rolling balls in our team, but outside of that it was pretty free flowing and entertaining rugby to watch. So yeah, I've got to say I think it was a really good experience on and off the pitch for me.
And then you moved on to Australia, and I guess that's also very interesting because the style of rugby in Australia is different to the style of rugby in Europe, right?
Yeah, I remember when I was still playing. I was in a training session, and we were like it was a team run, and I was setting up. I think we were just outside R22, and I was setting up a box kick to exit. And once I kicked it, and the play went on and finished, and then one of the players grabbed me and he was like, "None of that Welsh shit here." So it's again very free flowing. You try and run the ball if you can. For me, and it's probably influenced my coaching more than anywhere else I've been actually, because I kind of hold on to this, I suppose, Southern Hemisphere approach of how to attack and how we want to move the ball. And yeah, I suppose it probably influenced me more than being at home in my coaching now, So awesome experience again, I have to say. It was really amazing lifestyle. The level of rugby was good, and lots of influences from other parts of the world as well. But there's still this like DNA of how Australian rugby should be, and yeah, really positive experience.
Okay. Wales, coming from Wales, which is a big rugby country, going to Malaysia, exotic rugby country, going to Australia, a huge rugby country, and then Austria. Why Austria?
Why Austria? So at the time, I had agreed to go to Ireland, and I was going to work with Ulster's like women's program at the time, and it was agreed. I hadn't signed a contract, but I did, in principle, agreed. And I was finishing in Australia, and I just went like on a road trip, and I was near the Great Barrier Reef, and I was waiting for a bus, and I checked my emails, and in the spam folder there was a message from the technical director of Rugby Austria, and he asked if I wanted to have a meeting about being a sevens coach. So I got to a hostel in Cairns, and I said, "I've got a meeting. Is it okay?" And I'm not joking. It was right next to this big nightclub, right? And it's crazy. Like the party was 24/7. And she said, "If you go to the top floor of the hostel, it's a bit quiet. You'll be fine." So I went up, logged on, got my laptop up, watched maybe a game or two of Austria sevens on YouTube, and Norman Franges popped up, the technical director, and as his face appeared on the screen, there was a tannoy announcement. "Oh yes, it's ladies' night. Come down to the bar." So I was thinking, oh no, like that's. I guess I'm going to Ulster, and so then we had the meeting still, and yeah, then he was just sort of talking about the fact they're playing Rugby Europe competitions, and this would mean like a lot of travel and a lot of a lot of exciting things. You know, I was only 23, so I was really. And there'd be a bit of ego in that as well, thinking, okay, 23, I could coach a national team, I get to travel a lot. It sounded a little bit more exciting for where I was at that time in my life, probably. And I have to say, it worked out brilliantly because if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't have met Valentina, my partner. I wouldn't have met so many great people there and really like lifelong friends there. But I think there was always, I hope it doesn't sound too disrespectful to them, but there was always a sense in my head that I probably could coach a better level than where they were at that time. I think they've done a lot of good things in recent years, but I think at that time it had kind of stagnated. I was coaching a club, and that club won the national championship for the first time ever. So that was kind of like one big thing ticked. The sevens had got to their best rankings at that point. The women's sevens that I also coached had like steadily improved their rankings and had gone bronze, silver, and the following year got gold. So I just kind of felt like I'd run my race there, so to speak. But it was a really awesome chapter of my life, and one where I think probably I developed the most as a coach, but also as a person away from rugby. So nothing but grateful for the opportunity there.
Yeah, you're a person that loves to travel and get to know different cultures, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's again probably I said it earlier in terms of helping people is probably the thing I love most about coaching, but travel is a close second, and rugby's, like I said, has been really awesome for me to use it almost as a passport and go and see lots of different things. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, after Austria, you said you wanted to get into a bit higher level coaching. How did you get in contact with Rugby Deutschland?
So I was in Italy before Deutschland, and so I was coaching a club in Torino, and there was a player at SCN who was also from
Ah,
Torino, and so I I'd kind of made my mind up that I wasn't going to stay in Italy past the end of that season because I loved it in Italy, like I really did, but I felt like it wasn't the right thing for me and Valley at that point, um, and then he mentioned there was a chance to go to SCN, and so I decided that we would do that, and I spent a few months at SCN, and Kieran Anderson was coaching the women at that point, and he just invited me in to work with the team, and I did a couple of camps, I think, and really enjoyed it. And from then there was just opportunities to keep getting involved in sort of I suppose, a unofficial consultancy basis, and then a job came up, and I got asked if I would be interested in it. At that point, I was still coaching SCN, so it was kind of a job share arrangement, which was had its own challenges, but it was again very grateful to SCN for granting me that opportunity, and then I think from the second I got involved with the union, I loved the sort of autonomy I had in my role, that I could be in the morning working with the men's sevens, doing some skills stuff, and then in the afternoon I could be preparing a 15s men's attack strategy meeting, or coaching the women, or coaching. I got to be head coach of the under 20s, and so there was just so many different hats to wear, which was awesome for me, and I hope that I added some value in that role to those programs. But I felt for me, again, a sort of learning for me was the way I can help people the most is actually if I'm in one position and really focus on doing that one position really well rather than doing 5 things maybe at 50% capacity. So it was a really nice timing. My contract with that current role was expiring at the same time this women's role came up, so there was a few conversations about going elsewhere, but when I got sort of approached about it, as I've said already, I was really in awe of this women's team, and I felt that if anyone could help them, then I felt I could add value. So when that opportunity came up, it was pretty simple, really. I don't think that conversation took very long to come to a resolution.
Because that's such an interesting interview, and right now it's the longest interview in the history of Rugby Daily. I have
Really?
one last question, completely different topic, because you're a Welshman, and Welsh rugby has a lot of issues. Looking at the last Six Nations, they had terrible losses. Like, if you can put it somehow in a nutshell, like, where do you see the problems in Welsh rugby?
Could probably double the length of this podcast. Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think our players are not good enough at the moment, but I think the infrastructure has not been good enough for a long time. So it's probably meant that we haven't developed players to that standard. We haven't been competitive enough at regional level to develop players. Yeah, it's a really difficult thing to put your finger on. Like the game, it's effectively broken in the club game, in the regional game. So uh, there's a lot of financial issues. There's a interest issue as well. I would say, like the regional game, you don't get a lot of fans go to watch that. I don't think many people would watch on TV. It's quite a difficult competition to explain as well when you don't really follow. Like trying to explain it to your grandmother, for example, it's quite difficult to say Newport are playing Durban, and like it's like so. I think there's a lot of things, and not all of them are bad, but I think there's a lot of things they need to have a think about and reset. But I think the big thing is just the production of players from sort of 16 to 20, and how we can do better in that area.
Yeah. Okay, Curtis, thanks so much for your time. As I said, the longest interview so far in Rugby Daily history, but it was so interesting. Thanks a lot, and I wish you all the best. I wish you a lot of success. Maybe we see you at the Olympic Games one day with the German women's team. Would be great. Thank you.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much, Jan. Thank you.